Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling smaller than when you entered it, confused, drained, and somehow to blame? You came in with honesty, hoping for understanding, but by the end, you're the one second-guessing your own reality. That's not miscommunication. That's strategy. Some people, those who crave control over truth, don't argue to resolve. They argue to disorient. They don't just bend facts, they warp your sense of self. And the real danger? It's not their lies. It's the slow erosion of your confidence in what you know to be true. That's how power shifts, quietly, invisibly, until you're not even sure which way is up. But Stoic wisdom reminds us, no one can steal your clarity unless you give it away. You don't need to fight louder. You don't need to explain harder. You simply need to see clearly and act accordingly. So the question becomes, how do you regain your footing when someone keeps trying to pull the ground out from under you? There is one powerful way, calm, simple, and devastatingly effective. And it begins with a single question. Stay with me. What you'll learn may not only expose their tactics, it may restore your peace. 1. Recognizing the trap. Have you ever found yourself in a conversation that felt like quicksand? You entered with clarity, perhaps setting a boundary, or calmly speaking your truth, only to realize, somehow, you're the one explaining, justifying, even apologizing for your own feelings. You sit there stunned, asking yourself, how did we get here? That's the signature of a person who doesn't seek truth. They seek dominance. You're not speaking with someone who values understanding. You're confronting someone who sees conversation as a battlefield. And the moment you start defending yourself, you've already surrendered the high ground. See, when you're dealing with someone who is committed not to truth but to control, reason is irrelevant. They don't engage to connect, they engage to confuse. While you come with sincerity, with the hope that dialogue can bring resolution, they come with strategy. They're not listening, they're waiting. Waiting for the moment you show even a flicker of self-doubt, so they can redirect the spotlight and bend reality to suit their story. And if you've ever been caught in this spiral, you know the feeling. The more you speak, the less you're heard. The more honest you are, the more your words are turned against you. This is not a failure of communication. This is a design. You're playing a game that was never meant to be fair. This is the danger of engaging with those who reject reason. People who turn sincerity into ammunition and clarity into confusion. When they sense their grip slipping, they don't back down. They shift shape. One moment, they're the aggressor. The next, the victim. One moment, they don't remember. The next, you're the one being accused of distortion. They don't seek understanding. They seek to exhaust. And when you're exhausted, they win. Not because they were right, but because you were too weary to continue. But here's the good news. You don't need to out-talk them. You don't need to prove yourself. You don't need to fight your way out of a trap that collapses the moment you stop moving. Because the only power they truly have is the power you hand over when you try to make them see something they are determined to ignore. This is where Stoicism gives us a timeless insight. Peace comes not from winning battles, but from choosing which battlegrounds are worthy of your presence. You don't owe your truth to those who trade in confusion. You don't need to plead your integrity before someone who has no intention of honoring it. So, what do you do instead? You shift the frame. You stop playing their game. And you do it with a single powerful question. A question that doesn't defend, doesn't explain, doesn't beg for understanding. A question that simply shines a light and forces them to either face the truth or reveal what they're desperately trying to hide. Because manipulative people are skilled only as long as they steer the conversation. The moment they're held to account, the illusion begins to fracture. They stumble, they deflect, and if you watch closely, you'll see something rare: the quiet unraveling of someone who's spent their life avoiding mirrors. The Stoics teach us that self-mastery begins where reaction ends. And in these moments, when provoked to defend what doesn't need defending, your strength lies in restraint. Don't feed the fire. Don't chase validation. Instead, step into your clarity and ask the one question that returns the burden of truth to where it belongs. That's how you disrupt the game. Not by raising your voice, not by fighting harder, but by standing still and watching what happens when the mask can no longer hold. The one who remains unmoved in the face of distortion, that's the one who holds the real power. 2. The question that disarms power. Have you ever witnessed the exact moment someone loses their grip on control? The instant when certainty collapses, not because you shouted, not because you argued, but because you asked something so simple, so disarming, that it shattered their illusion entirely. That's what happens when you confront someone who manipulates, dominates, and distorts reality with a single Stoic question. Not a counterattack, not an emotional plea, just calm, precise clarity. And the question is this: what would you do if you were in my shoes? At first, it may seem too gentle to be powerful, too subtle to carry weight. But that's what makes it so brilliant. Because this question does what no amount of arguing ever could. It exposes. It's not about fighting louder. It's about forcing the other person to do something they're utterly unequipped to do. Respond with integrity. See, the kind of people who manipulate others, who bend the truth, shift blame, and avoid all accountability, don't operate within the realm of virtue. They operate in shadows. Their strength lies in confusion, in keeping the conversation just blurry enough that they can always escape responsibility. But the moment you bring the conversation into the light, by asking them to momentarily step outside their ego, to consider someone else's perspective, their framework begins to crumble. Why? Because this question demands reflection. It demands empathy. It invites the kind of self-awareness that a person rooted in vice cannot tolerate. When you ask, "What would you do if you were in my place?" a person of sound character, someone with even a modest commitment to wisdom and justice, will pause. They'll consider the question. They may not agree with you, but they'll try to understand, because that's what people grounded in reason do. But the manipulator, the one who cloaks deceit in charm and control in confusion, they cannot engage. Not really. If they answer truthfully, if they admit that in your place, they'd feel the same pain, the same frustration. They're conceding that your reaction is human, valid, and understandable. And to someone who relies on keeping you off balance, that's unbearable. So what do they do instead? They evade, they deflect, they accuse. They try to twist the question into an attack, as if your desire for clarity is somehow a trap. And in doing so, they reveal everything. Because what kind of person can't even pretend to consider another's experience? What kind of person views a simple, reflective question as a threat? That alone should tell you all you need to know. But there's more. If they do answer, pay attention, not just to the words, but to the mindset beneath them. Often, what they reveal isn't understanding. It's projection. They answer not as you would, but as they would. Their response will be laced with calculation, with justification, with cold logic that serves only themselves. Because when they imagine themselves in your shoes, They're still imagining a version of themselves that prioritizes control. And in that moment, they expose not just their inability to empathize, but their entire value system. It's like lighting a candle in a dark room. Suddenly, you see the outlines of things you hadn't noticed before. Their tactics, their contradictions, their avoidance of accountability. All the things that once seemed confusing now make perfect sense. You're no longer entangled, you're observing. And once you can see, you stop participating in the game. And that, more than anything, disarms them. Because nothing unsettles those who live in pretense more than being seen clearly. They don't fear confrontation, they fear clarity. They fear the moment you realize you don't need to win the argument. You just need to walk away with your peace intact. So the next time you're in one of those circular conversations, the kind where you feel your sense of reality slipping, where nothing they say quite makes sense, but somehow you still feel guilty, pause. Don't explain, don't defend. Just ask, what would you do if you were in my shoes? Then fall silent. Let the question hang. Let it do what it was meant to do. Reveal. Because in their answer, or their refusal to answer, you'll learn everything you need to know. And once you see the truth, you no longer fear it. You simply act accordingly. That, in the Stoic sense, is power. 3. Why this one? Question reveals. Have you ever seen someone subtly cornered, not by force, but by truth? It's a remarkable shift to witness. The way their words falter, how their certainty wavers, that flicker of hesitation when they realize there's no clever way out this time. And that's exactly what happens when you ask them the one question they cannot prepare for. What would you do if you were in my shoes? At first glance, it may seem too soft to be powerful, but the Stoics would tell you, power doesn't always need to shout. True strength lies in clarity, and this question, though quiet, cuts straight through illusion. It unravels the entire structure manipulators rely on to maintain control. Those who operate through deception follow a familiar pattern. They distort the narrative, shift responsibility, and keep you so occupied defending yourself that you lose the stillness needed to question what's truly happening. But this one question breaks the cycle. It doesn't accuse. It doesn't plead. It requires them to do something they've spent a lifetime avoiding, to step outside of their own ego and acknowledge another person's perspective. A person of sound character, grounded in reason, will pause when they hear that question. Even in disagreement, they will make a genuine effort to understand. Because to see the world through another's eyes, even momentarily, is a mark of inner strength. But those who thrive on dominance cannot make that shift. They see others not as fellow travelers in life, but as objects to be used or controlled. To ask them to enter your point of view is to remove their armor, and they panic. If they answer sincerely, they risk validating your experience, and that's something they cannot allow. Because once your feelings are recognized as legitimate, their control begins to crumble. You're no longer operating under their version of reality. You've reasserted your own. But if they avoid the question, if they mock it, dodge it, or flip it back on you, then their refusal speaks volumes. What kind of person finds it unreasonable to consider another's position? That moment is revealing, not just because of their answer, but because of what it reflects back at them. You see them now. You're not confused anymore. You're not playing your part in the performance. You've stepped out of the illusion, and they know it. This is the true power of the question. It doesn't just expose who they are, it reveals that you've awakened. And when someone who depends on secrecy and imbalance realizes they've been seen, the dynamic shifts instantly. They might scoff, they might accuse you of being dramatic, they might say the question is pointless, but don't be fooled. That reaction isn't strength, it's defense. It's a scramble to regain control when the script no longer works. This is where Stoic clarity becomes essential. When you see that flicker, the denial, the mockery, the attempt to diminish the moment, pause. Do not explain. Do not argue. You've already found what you came for, and once the truth is seen, it cannot be unseen. You no longer need to justify yourself to someone who refuses to see you. You no longer need to extend the benefit of the doubt to someone who's never once earned it. You reclaim your peace, not by forcing understanding, but by walking away from the chaos they hoped you'd remain entangled in. So the next time the familiar confusion begins to rise, when you feel that tightening, that pressure to defend yourself in a conversation that makes less and less sense, pause. Take a breath. Ask calmly, what would you do if you were in my shoes? And then listen, not for logic, but for truth. Their answer, or lack of one, will tell you everything. And from that point forward, you're no longer in their story. You're writing your own. 4. The Stoic response to their mask. Have you ever stepped out of a conversation feeling like something invisible just crushed your spirit? You entered with clarity, perhaps to set a boundary, to express how a line was crossed, and somehow you left the one apologizing, the one questioning your own sense of justice. Meanwhile, the other person, the one who transgressed, remains calm, untouched, almost victorious. That is not miscommunication. That is orchestration. And when you're dealing with someone who thrives on control, that's the cost. Not just the tension in the moment, but the erosion of your own self-trust over time. But now, things are different, because you've discovered something they never prepared for. A question they can't manipulate. What would you do if you were in my shoes? A simple phrase that exposes the one thing they work so hard to conceal, the truth of who they really are. Their reaction tells you everything. If they evade, twist, deflect, or mock, they've shown their hand. The illusion breaks. But here's what matters most. Seeing the truth is only the beginning. The real turning point comes in what you choose to do next. And this is where many falter, not because they're weak, but because they still hold hope. The hope that if they just explain it better, offer more patience, say it calmly enough, maybe this time things will change. But someone who seeks to dominate doesn't need more chances. They need distance, because the person who refuses to understand is not lacking explanation. They're resisting accountability, and when that becomes clear, the Stoic does not fight harder. They step back and protect their peace. That's the danger of these relationships. Not just the arguments, but what they do to your inner compass. They invite you to keep proving yourself, to keep defending what needs no defense. And that's the trap. Once you start explaining to someone who has no intention of listening, you're already giving away your power. But once you see they aren't listening, not really, you stop speaking. That silence is not surrender, it's strength. You don't need their apology. You don't need their admission of guilt. What you need is clarity, and you already have it. The question gave it to you. Now comes the discipline, to act accordingly. That might mean enforcing boundaries without guilt. It might be no longer participating in circular conversations that serve only their ego. It might mean stepping away altogether. Because some people, no matter how much you've invested in them, are simply not safe to keep in your inner world. And in the Stoic sense, safety isn't just about physical harm. It's about preserving the soul, your reason, your dignity, your inner stillness. Sometimes the most powerful act isn't confrontation, it's refusal. Refusal to be baited, drained, or twisted. Refusal to negotiate your self-respect for the sake of keeping things peaceful. True peace is not the absence of conflict. It's the presence of clarity. And when someone shows you they cannot meet you in that space, believe them. The first time. Don't wait for another betrayal just to validate what you already know. Don't collect more evidence to justify your intuition. When that quiet voice inside you says, something is off, listen. That's not paranoia, it's perception. And the moment you feel hesitation rising, stop and remind yourself, I already have my answer. Because, in the end, this isn't about defeating anyone. It's not about outsmarting the one who tried to control you. It's about stepping out of the game entirely. You don't owe your clarity to those who profit from confusion. You don't need to be understood by someone who refuses to listen. And you certainly don't need to shrink yourself just to keep another person comfortable. So next time the dynamic begins again, when the words twist, the weight shifts, and your spirit begins to dim, pause, ask the question, and when their answer comes, in whatever form, don't flinch, don't explain. Trust what you see, and more importantly, trust yourself enough to act on it. Because clarity is not the end of the path, it's the beginning of your way forward. 5. Choosing yourself over illusion. There comes a moment, precise, unmistakable, when clarity finally cuts through the fog. It's the instant after you ask the question, what would you do if you were in my shoes? And you witness their response. Maybe they grow defensive. Maybe they twist it back on you. Maybe they mock it, evade it, or try to make you feel guilty just for asking. But regardless of how they respond, something becomes undeniable. You see them. Not the version you hoped they were. Not the one you tried so hard to reach. You see the reality, and in that moment, confusion dissolves. The guessing stops. The contortions to be understood fall away, because now you know exactly who stands in front of you. And that changes everything. Once you see someone for who they truly are, you cannot unsee it. You can't force yourself to believe in a version of them that doesn't exist. And you certainly can't keep handing them your time, your energy, your grace, hoping one more act of kindness will awaken the better version of them. This is not about the question you asked, or even the answer they gave. This is about what comes after. The choice you must make now that the truth stands bare before you. And here is that truth. Some people will never meet you in the middle. No matter how much patience you offer, how much peace you try to build, how gently you explain your side, they will always choose power over connection. They will choose to be right instead of being fair. And if you stay, if you keep trying to earn something they have no intention of giving, you will end up drained, not just of energy, but of self. Because it's not just the argument that harms you. It's what it does to your inner compass. You begin to doubt yourself. You wonder if you were asking for too much. If maybe your boundaries were unreasonable. If maybe the problem was you. That's the deeper wound, not just being dismissed, but being taught to mistrust your own clarity. That's how those who seek control maintain their grip, not by overpowering you, but by planting doubt in your perception. But here's the truth. Stoicism calls us to remember, you do not owe infinite chances to someone who repeatedly misuses them. You do not owe your silence to preserve another person's comfort, and you do not owe your peace to someone who only values it when it serves them. Sometimes the strongest act isn't to fight, but to walk away, not out of bitterness but out of honor, not to punish them but to protect what remains unbroken in you. That choice is hard, because you've invested, you've cared, you've tried. But choosing yourself isn't betrayal. It's the beginning of loyalty to something far more important, your own dignity. Letting go doesn't mean you never cared. It means you finally realized you were the only one who did. You're not responsible for dragging someone toward their better self. That's their task. Your task is to refuse to shrink just to make room for their refusal to grow. So ask yourself, not how do I get them to understand, but how long am I willing to abandon myself to keep this peace? Because that's the real cost of staying. You begin to silence your voice to avoid conflict. You second-guess your instincts to keep harmony. And soon, what was once a relationship becomes a performance, one where only your needs get edited out. But the moment you stop explaining, the moment you stop hoping they'll change, and instead begin asking what you need, that is the moment you return to yourself. That is the moment you take your power back. Because this has never been about them. It has always been about you, about trusting your voice, honoring your clarity, and remembering this truth. You deserve peace that isn't built on silence, love that doesn't require erasure, and relationships that reflect, not reject, your worth. So, the next time you're standing face to face with someone who won't meet you halfway, someone who dodges every truth, evades every responsibility, and only seems to value you when you're easy to control, pause for a moment. You don't have to argue. You don't have to explain. And you certainly don't have to keep proving something to a person who has already made up their mind not to see you clearly. Instead, choose yourself. Choose peace. Choose clarity. Trust what you've seen. Trust what you feel. And trust that walking away from distortion is not weakness, it's wisdom. Because true strength isn't in holding on tighter, it's in knowing when to let go with grace. If this spoke to something deep inside you, comment, "I choose truth," below. And if you want to keep building the kind of inner strength that no manipulator can touch, you're welcome to subscribe, quietly, intentionally, on your terms. This isn't the end of the conversation. In the next video, we'll explore what to do when walking away isn't possible and how to protect your peace even in close quarters with chaos. Until then, stay grounded, stay clear, and above all, stay free.